Let's talk about genetic drift, also known as evolution's luck of the draw. Picture a small population, maybe only 10 rabbits. Because they're so few in numbers, random events can massively change which copies of a gene make it to the next generation. A copy of a gene is called an allele. Maybe one unlucky critter doesn't get to mate or gets swept in a sudden storm and boom, all those genes are lost, potentially shifting the gene pool in a big way. In larger populations, let's say 100, that same poof event is a much smaller dent in the overall genetic makeup, so the impact will not be so dramatic. Let's use an example of 10 rabbits to show how random distribution of alleles can shift their genetic pool dramatically. It's like flipping a coin. Suppose we have 10 rabbits right in here. In this sample, let's say a gene for brown fur color is dominant and the one for white fur color is recessive. The alleles are distributed evenly 50-50, and that's described up in here. Remember, only the dominant gene is expressed, allele is expressed, unless there are two recessive ones. And that's why, even though the alleles in this picture are evenly distributed, there are 8 brown and only 2 white rabbits. You see that here. We have 8 brown rabbits and only 2 white rabbits. Remember, if a dominant allele is present, it will get expressed. Let's say 5 of them reproduce. The alleles present in those individuals will get randomly shuffled. That's like flipping that coin. The frequency of alleles in the next generation reflects the frequency among individuals reproducing. And we can see that here. That's a 70-30 split because here if you look at the big A's, that's the dominant alleles, and the little A's, you got seven dominant alleles and 3 recessive ones in the reproducing rabbits. So the frequency is going to be that 70-30 split. And voila, allele frequency has changed, and that's evolution right there. Then in the next generation, the odds have shifted yet again, and over the long haul, the population might wind up all dominant or all recessive alleles, just by chance. See, in this example, only 2 rabbits reproduce. You see that here. And they both have only dominant alleles for the fur color gene, which then makes the next generation all have brown fur. So you can see they only have the big A's, that's the dominant allele. So then here you see the ratio is 1:0, that's 100% of dominant alleles. You can see all of these are all dominants if you'll check them out. Genetic drift is caused by random fluctuations of allele frequencies within a population, leading to change in the gene pool over time. The smaller the population, the greater effect random events have on allele frequency. That's why small populations feel that, because if you only have a handful of individuals, losing one of them is like losing a big puzzle piece. In huge populations, that one individual is just a tiny puzzle piece, so it's less likely to cause a total gene frequency shakeup. Now, picture a random disaster like a flood or wildfire wiping out a big chunk of the population. This bottleneck can reshuffle allele frequency overnight. Like in this bottle's neck, right in here. Only a few marbles get through representing the surviving population. You hear here the surviving population, the few little marbles. The survivors, which whatever random gene they carry, become the new genetic foundation, which might look totally different than the one from the original population. Look at all those marbles. That's a big gene pool. The key is that the disaster kills randomly, not based on who is stronger or more cold tolerant, or whatever have you. Genetic drift can lead to loss of genetic variation. Some alleles may become fixed and present in all individuals, while others can be eliminated from the population entirely. The bottleneck effect is when a sudden reduction in population size can lead to a loss of genetic diversity, as the surviving individuals may not represent the full genetic diversity of the original population anymore. Another effect, the founder effect, happens when a small group, the so-called founders, leave the main population to start a new one somewhere else. The genetic makeup of that mini group sets the tone for the new population. If the founder happened to carry some rare alleles, those alleles might become super common in the new population. A classic case is the Afrikaner population in South Africa. A small numbers of Dutch settlers carried certain mutations, so now those conditions, like Huntington's disease, show up more than they do in most other populations. So when you look at the founder's effect, is when a small group of individuals colonize a new area, the genetic makeup of the new population may differ from the original population due to chance. The key takeaway is that genetic drift isn't about which allele is best. It's about random events. Bad luck or good luck in the genetic lottery. Combine drift with other evolutionary forces such as selection or mutation, and you get the riveting story of how populations change over time. Nature, it seems, like to keep us on its toes. Let's talk a little bit about gene flow, because gene flow is all about allele hitchhiking from one population to another. It's like friendly neighbors moving across town. When individuals, or just even their gametes, migrate, they bring their genes along for the ride, potentially mixing up the genetic makeup of the new population. Some populations are pretty settled, not so much coming or going. But others, especially those with wide-ranging seeds or migratory ones, they're experiencing a lot of flux. For instance, a plant might send seeds floating on the breeze or tucked into a fur of an animal, and suddenly these seeds land in a new spot and carry genes that might be rare or even absent to that new population. Or, as you can see in this example, the brown beetle moves to another geographic location, and in this example introduces its alleles to the green population, the green beetle population. And over time, that can reshape an entire gene pool, and new genes can spark exciting changes in a population's future. So gene flow, we also know that as gene migration or allele flow, is the transfer of genetic material from one population to another, often through the movement of individuals or their gametes. For example, here we got pollen. And then next, we'll talk about evidence of evolution.